I call the Assistant Minister for Homelessness and Social Housing.
Thanks very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm proud to be part of the Morrison government that is delivering for all Australians. And when it comes to this place and what we should be doing as MPs, delivery is what counts. And the Morrison government is delivering in spades. As Australians look at this tough year in 2020, as we've seen this global COVID-19 pandemic not just go through Australia but right around the world, Australians know the Morrison government has kept them safe. What did the Minister for Health say not too long ago? He said he would introduce universal telehealth. And what's being delivered in relation to universal telehealth? We've had 12 million people have accessed 40 million services and over $2 billion in benefits delivered by the Morrison government. We look at GP respiratory clinics. As part of our COVID response, we announced $206 million on the 11th of March this year to raise up to 100 clinics across the country to provide access for testing. And would you believe that by the 19th of August, Mr Deputy Speaker, there wasn't 100 clinics providing this service, but 146 clinics operating here. In relation to vaccines, we saw the Minister for Health and the Prime Minister say on the 19th of August, we announced that we have signed a letter with intent with AstraZeneca to access the Oxford vaccine. And by the 4th of September, we had signed a binding agreement for them to supply 33.8 million doses, and on top of that agreement, including a partnership with our very own Australian CSL to manufacture. That's what delivery is about, and that's how the Morrison government is delivering. I think of my good friend, the member for Hinkler, and Cabinet Minister in the Morrison government up in Bundaberg. Do you know, before the last election, the Morrison government committed $7 million to ensure that the Fraser Coast, not far from you, Mr Deputy Speaker, had their own palliative care centre in Bundaberg. That now has been delivered, the sod has been turned and construction is starting. We look at the Butterfly Foundation. In April 2019 we announced $4.5 million for the Butterfly Foundation, a specialist eating disorder centre on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Building is underway, and you can check that with the member for Fisher on how that's going. In my own Department of Social Services, the Morrison government is supercharging our safety net, delivering additional support to Australians doing it tough through this extraordinary, difficult period. We're doing this by delivering on our committed announcements. For example, in relation to social housing and community housing, in the Hobart City deal, we promised 100 social houses worth $25 million. To date, 48 dwellings are complete. Another 24 homes are currently occupied by tenants, and a further 26 dwellings are close to completion, with more to be done. In relation to volunteering, there are 8.7 million volunteers in Australia, and in the wake of the bushfires and a global pandemic, the contributions our volunteers make is vital. Volunteers are local champions. And yesterday, I announced a further $2.7 million for community volunteers across 779 local organisations, including in all of yours. This is on top of the government's funding boost of $9 million earlier this year in May for 2,698 local places. Tomorrow, of course, Mr Deputy Speaker, and for the House, is International Day of People with Disability, and it's important we work to ensure that every day inclusion for Australians living with disability. And the NDIS is now supporting about 412,000 Australians with disability, an increase of approximately 100,000 participants in the last 12 months alone, and around 193,000 receiving supports for the very first time under the Morrison government. And I'm pleased that we have bipartisan support on that. We've continued to deliver significant and immediate improvements to the NDIS, and the latest NDIS quarterly report verifies that. Yesterday we heard from the Minister for Energy and Emissions, Minister Taylor, and he was saying when the Morrison government makes commitments in relation to our international commitments, we meet them and we beat them. This is evidenced by the release of the quarterly update of Australia's national greenhouse gas industry inventory, June 2020. The update confirms that the Morrison government has delivered. It's beaten our 2020 target by 459 million tonnes. Emissions are now 16.6% lower than 2005 levels. How about a few here's over there? Get on your feet, come on. Unlike Labor, unlike these people interjecting,
members will cease
we actually have a 2030 target, Mr Deputy Speaker. This mob over here still can't work out whether they're Arthur or Martha. You look at defence, we're absolutely helping our Australian Defence Force personnel. We know that those opposite cut $18 billion out of defence. They gutted defence, brought it down to about 1.5% of GDP. We're now, and we said this before the 2013 election, that we would increase defence investment to 2% of GDP, and we've now beaten that. We've delivered that once again, the Morrison government delivering, and that runs across Air Force, Navy, Army. I could go through all the infrastructure that we've delivered there, and I'm very proud to be a part of that government that is delivering it. When we look at infrastructure, not just in my electorate, but in all 151 electorates around this country, the Morrison government is committed to over 1,000 major land transport infrastructure projects, of which, would you believe, 399 have been completed, 195 are under construction or underway, and 481 are in planning. And we've committed to more than 31,000 smaller transport infrastructure projects, of which, out of that 31,000, 29,000 have been completed and delivered. Nearly 2,600 are planned and underway. And I only have to look in my own electorate to know what's been delivered. These are all projects that we promised before the last election. Construction of an autism hub in North Brisbane and Pine Rivers, the AEIOU, $4.5 million project that the member for Dixon and I promised, is now completed, helping young children with autism get a great start in life. The shade cloth and upgrade for the Aspley Bowls Club, $590,000 delivered. It's up and running. The member for Sydney should come up and have a bowl. It's done, delivered. The Aspley East Kindergarten Playground, you're welcome anytime. The Aspley East Kindergarten Playground development, delivered. The Ridge Hills Uniting Football Club at Bald Hills lighting, delivered. The Coast Guard Redcliffe protecting people on the water, $500,000, delivered. The North Lakes Eels AFL Club lighting project, delivered. The upgrade facilities of the Redcliffe Harness Racing Club and Sporting Club, all delivered. Dolphin Stadium, $7.5 million delivered by this coalition government, helping tourism in Moreton Bay. The surf club's currently being delivered, and all
Members
these things.
on my left will
and Mr.
cease
Deputy
interjecting.
Speaker, let me save the best till last. We know that every one of these people sitting opposite here went to the last election promising to increase taxes on Australians. Increase taxes. The member for Cooper was part of that as well. Wanted to jack up taxes. What have we done since the 2019 election in May? We have delivered tax cuts. We have delivered tax cuts. And what that means, listen carefully, people used to pay, if you were earning $50,000, we used to pay 19 cents in the dollar on the first 37,000. We now pay 19 cents in the dollar up to $45,000. Thank you, Member for Cooper. We have also increased the threshold up to $120,000 where you pay 32.5 cents. And what that means is that for every tradie, every nurse, every police officer, every teacher, everyone that does overtime, they're no longer going to get hit with a big tax bill because we have delivered tax cuts which will help with bracket creep, which will put more money in people's pockets this financial year when they most need it during this difficult COVID year. So if you want to talk about delivery, I've just named a few items. The Morrison government is delivering the spades. We don't take it for granted. We won't be arrogant, and we'll continue to do it.